Well, the San Francisco 49ers will get the wheels turning tomorrow. First chance for Trey Lance to tighten his grip on that starting quarterback job. All eyes will be on him to see how he adapts to QB1 after being limited to essentially about 2.5 games as a rookie. At just 22 years of age, the stage is set for him to showcase why he was kind of worth that number 3 overall pick in last year's draft. Now, he's only thrown just about 71 passes in the NFL throughout his young career. Also, after just 318, he did it North Dakota State from 2018 to 20. Struggled a bit when kind of thrust into the starting gig last season, completed just under 60% of his passes for 440, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and took 3 sacks. But we did see a bit of improvement from his first start in Week 5 to the second one in Week 16. My guy, NFL expert Ryan Wilson, checking in this morning at HQ. And Ryan, of course, Trey Lance taking over was the idea since last season. We kind of knew that coming into this year. As that QB1 during training camp now, what are you expecting from him and his improvement to year 2?
Yeah, the expectation is that he's going to come ready to go from day one. And I think that was the plan last year, Brandon. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch traded up to number 3. They got Trey Lance, but the expectation was that he was not going to play right away. He went to FCS program, South Dakota State. He only played sparingly last year because of injuries. And then now this is his job. Jimmy Garoppolo is recovering from that shoulder injury. He will probably be gone by the time the season starts, whether cut or traded, we'll see. And so this is going to be Trey Lance's show. And the good news is that this is all about the running game in Kyle Shanahan's system. Kyle Shanahan's arguably the best play caller on planet Earth, and he will put Trey Lance in positions to have success. And Trey Lance has a lot of good weapons around him. I mentioned the running game, but you also have George Kittle, the tight end, of course, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. And I think all those things, in addition to the athleticism that Trey Lance brings, makes this an easier transition than it might be for a more traditional drop-back quarterback, which is what Kyle Shanahan has had. So you want something new and shiny. Trey Lance provides that. Now it's up to Kyle Shanahan and Trey Lance to get on the same page and make this thing work. The biggest concern, other than the lack of experience, is that they play in a pretty tough division, so there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room to start off 2-3 or 3-3. They got to come out raring to go, and that's all going to come down to Trey Lance and his ability to take in this offense.
You mentioned that dual threat there when it comes to QBs. Russell Wilson, that's been the story of his game. Now, of course, ready to cook in Denver with the Broncos. Are we expecting him to really come in and compete this year right away? Because we know that AFC West is already stacked based on what we've seen this offseason.
I mean, that sort of sounds like a silly question, but that's where I'm coming down. Like, how quickly can Russ Wilson get into this new program, new coach with Nathaniel Hackett, who's a first-year head coach, who has experience dealing with future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. He came from Green Bay, had a lot of success with Aaron Rodgers. But this is a different scenario. You're not playing against the Vikings and the Bears and the Lions every week. You're playing, as you mentioned, a division that includes Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, and Patrick Mahomes. So how quickly can this thing get turned around? Last year, it clearly wasn't great, and they've struggled to go to the playoffs in recent years in that post-Peyton Manning era. And I think that's going to be probably what we see here. This team could win 10 or 11 football games and still finish 3rd, maybe even 4th in that division. It won't be because Russ Wilson isn't Russ Wilson. It'll be because they're not playing in the NFC North, for example. So I think it's going to be perhaps a 6-month adjustment period. It won't take a year, but by the time they get fired on all cylinders here, it might be too little too late in terms of making that playoff push or having a chance to win that division. So Russ Wilson trade, that's a no-brainer. Nathaniel Hackett, I think, is going to have a lot of success in Denver. I just think the competition is going to be such that it's going to require a little time to bring all these things together, and we may not see them in the playoffs until a year from now, which sounds sort of crazy.
All right, so the Broncos, they have their QB in Russ. Meanwhile, the Steelers are still trying to figure their situation out. They had Mitchell Trubisky getting a second chance here in Pittsburgh, but he's going to be part of that QB battle there with rookie Kenny Pickett. How long can he kind of maybe look over his shoulders with the rook, or is this something he can take from day one here when it comes to QB1?
So this is going to be interesting, Brandon, because this quarterback class, as we talked about all spring and even early into the new year, it wasn't great, and we'll see how good it actually ends up being. But Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback drafted in the first round, didn't go till 20th. And I think this is an opportunity for Mitch Trubisky, the former first-round pick, to hold on to this job for probably longer than folks expected when Kenny Pickett was drafted. I think he fits Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator system, really well in that he's mobile. There's a lot of pre-snap motion. There's a lot of movement after the snap, move in the pocket. And, of course, Mitch Trubisky can use his legs to win. Kenny Pickett's also mobile, but he's coming from a system where he was the only show in town in Pitt. They didn't play super great competition, and sometimes Pickett struggled against that competition. So there's no rush to get Kenny Pickett onto the field, even though he's 24 years old. And I think if they can find a way to win with Trubisky, and they have a ton of young weapons around him, that defense is going to be good as well. They may just stay the course with Mitchell and then circle back either late in the year if things are clear that the playoffs are going to be out of the picture, or maybe even next year, and that will be Kenny Pickett's opportunity. So I think this is Mitchell Trubisky's Ryan Tannehill moment to seize the opportunity, move forward with it, and try to win some football games.
Ryan, just for kicks and giggles here, we keep talking about Pickett and also Trubisky, but hey, Mason Rudolph, he's been in-house. He knows the offense. I mean, is he the odd man out? Does he have a chance maybe if those two kind of struggle here in Pittsburgh early?
Well, no. I think the best case scenario for Mason Rudolph is to do really well in training camp, and he's going to get those snaps in part because he's earned it, as you mentioned, but also they'll probably try to move on from him. So if they have an opportunity to trade him for a day 3 pick, maybe in late August before the season starts, if there's an injury on another team or another team isn't happy with their quarterback situation, that's probably where Mason Rudolph's future is going to be headed. If he ends up playing in Pittsburgh, some things have gone horribly wrong either through injury or not meeting expectations. So I think he's probably done in Pittsburgh in terms of an opportunity to start football games, but I do think he'll have a future in the NFL and may have a chance to play this year. It'll just be somewhere else.
So we don't have a three-headed monster there when it comes to QBs in Pittsburgh. How about Carolina now when you add Baker Mayfield to the Panthers, the latest addition to that QB room? Sam Darnold, we already saw what he did last year, along with the rookie Matt Corral coming from Ole Miss. How will this competition kind of pan out for Matt Rule here when it comes to his QB1?
Matt Rule needs to get into the dungeon with the magicians and the wizards and the warlocks and come up with a recipe that makes sure he don't lose a lot of football games because he's going to get fired, and that's the truth. So he's got to figure this out. Whether it's Baker, whether it's Sam, whether it's Matt Corral, you got to figure out the right combination. Whether one starts one week and the one starts the next, of how to win these football games. There's not a lot around them in terms of playmakers. They drafted Ike Ekwonu, which was the right choice with that top 10 pick to help the offensive line. But after that, I mean, you're putting a lot on your quarterback, whoever's under center. So Matt Rule may wish he had a time machine and just go back and stay at Baylor. Time machine has not been invented yet, and his owner in Carolina, Dave Tepper, is one who doesn't have a lot of patience. So you hope Baker's the guy, and I think fresh start, it's a cliche, but fresh start might be good for Baker Mayfield. The problem, of course, is he didn't go to the Broncos, for example. He went to the Panthers, a team who might be the worst team in that division. That includes the Falcons. So we'll see. It's going to be tough sledding. If you told me that Matt Rule found a way to keep his job, I would be shocked 6 or 7 months from now. But hey, everyone has hope right now, Brandon. It's mid-July. Every team is 0-0, so you just figure out a way to win football games with those 3 quarterbacks, which is going to be extremely tough for Matt Rule.
If it doesn't go right for him, when do you think this is the end? Is it October, November, or what are we thinking here? What's his timeline?
Well, Dave Tepper is not patient, and that's been clear through his actions. If they start 0-4, 0-5, that feels like that's going to be a wrap. If they find a way to go 2-3, 2-4, I think Matt Rule can hold on until Thanksgiving. But he might be thankful to get fired. He might be looking to move on as well. So, again, I think the Baker trade made sense. I just think you have to put the things around Baker for him to have success. I don't know if Carolina's quite there yet. And we know Matt Rule's a good football coach, just hasn't quite worked out on a team where he's not able to recruit the kids and bring them in, and much like a college program where he had those successes at Temple and Baylor.
All right, we'll see what happens there. By the way, they have the Niners and Rams in the first 5 weeks of the season, so you might be right or something. It may be one and done after this year when it comes to Matt Rule. As always, my guy Ryan Wilson tapping in. Don't forget, check out the Pick Six. You can catch him, the fellas, as always, breaking down the MVP candidates in each of the NFC divisions. Aaron Rodgers and a cast of familiar guys leading the way in that conference. Will Brinson and John Breach breaking it down. Download and give them a follow.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.